I'm Mayor Jen Grigoritis, the co-chair, and this is a meeting of the Rapid Transit and Bus Committee for the MBTA Advisory Board. It is 1:32 p.m. on Tuesday, May 20th, and we do have a quorum of members present, so we will get underway. Our first order of business is the approval of the April 15th, 2025 meeting minutes. And Hannah, do we have those available for folks?
They should be.
Okay.
I can pull it up. I will put it into the chat if you haven't already seen it.
Do we have any? Hi, Brian. Do we have any questions, comments, or anyone looking to make a motion to approve?
I'll make that motion. Alan from Brockton.
Thank you. We have a motion by Alan to approve. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
With the second from Frank?
John.
Sorry, I'm trying to find everyone on my screen. All right.
Yep, no problem.
Is there any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Are there any ayes? Any opposed?
Oh.
Excuse me, is this
Yes.
on the minutes? I'm sorry, I'm a little bit late.
We're doing a voting on approving the minutes from April 15th, 2025.
Yeah, I noticed there was no list of the attendees on those minutes. Could that be added?
So we have a request to add to amend the minutes to have a attendees. Is that something we can do?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
great.
Yep.
Okay, so with that agreement to change that, I'll do one more time, just all in favor of approving the minutes, if you can raise your hand. Okay, any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, seeing that, those minutes are approved. Thank you. Our next item is the headway management update with Mike Joyce. So I will turn it over to Mike, who I saw somewhere.
Thank you.
And
Great.
do you need
Thanks.
screen sharing at all?
No, so I was just going to, I guess, introduce myself, speak a little bit about what we've done recently, and open the floor to questions if it's okay with everyone.
That works for us. Thank you.
Very good. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Michael Joyce. I am a director with the Operations Control Center here at the MBTA. I've been with the T for over 21 years now. I started out as a fueler in bus maintenance, and eventually I became a bus driver working out of Cabot in Southampton. But for the last 10 years, I've been with the Operations Control Center. I started out as a bus dispatcher, working my way up from supervisor to deputy director to my current role now. When I started at OCC, one of the main job duties was to ensure, as a bus dispatcher, to ensure that buses are running on time. As a dispatcher, we would do this by keeping up both on our assigned manpower roster. Every dispatcher is assigned a garage or garages, and they have to ensure that everyone's logging on to their buses, that they are actually reporting for duty. And then we monitor route ladders. Once we get the buses in service, we monitor those route ladders to make sure they're running on time. On a typical day, we have 4 to 5 bus dispatchers in the OCC fielding calls from every bus in the authority. Although managing service is it is a responsibility that we take on, the priority ends up being that we field calls from operators and officials in the field. We dispatch appropriate personnel to emergency incidents, and we ensure that all incidents are logged with time points and great detail. All the while providing notifications to both internal OCC supervisors and bus operations supervisory staff. Last fall, I participated in a Lean Six Sigma Greenbelt cohort, and our project was to tackle bus headways. My working group was comprised of MBTA employees, though none besides me had bus operations or OCC experience. However, they were very well equipped to analyze what had become a glaring issue: bus bunching. There were many different reasons, many different variables come into play as to why buses may bunch together, but we found that there were reasons why it wasn't being addressed as much as it had in the past. Our group in Greenbelt spoke with T employees who had experience with other transit agencies, and other people who are working outside of the T at other transit agencies currently, and we kind of discovered two main things. One, the number of buses that our OCC bus dispatchers are overseeing is greater per shift than other comparable agencies. I believe it's almost 2 to 1. Furthermore, we found in places where routes were managed by Headway, other transit agency that implemented this process, there was a lot of boots on the ground. There were personnel in multiple locations along the route where they could make interventions when needed. So we ended up piloting a project. We decided to just ensure that buses leaving from terminus areas were at least 2 time points ahead of the one that was behind it to avoid bus bunching. A time point is just like locations along the route for which we can track a bus while it's in service. So for instance, we use the Route 1. And on the Route 1, Harvard is the inbound terminus area where the buses are going to enter into Nubian Square. And 2 time points up was Central Square in Cambridge. For the other side, Nubian, 2 time points up is Mass Ave and Washington Street. So we assigned the pilot to a dispatcher in the room. However, we quickly realized that the responsibilities of taking radio calls from, multiple garages, as well as trying to, apply what we're doing in this pilot program was too difficult. The responsibilities were too much. So we ended up shifting gears and assigning the pilot itself to one dispatcher in the room just to see what the effect would be. And we ran that pilot on September 4th last year. It was a Wednesday, September 4th of 2024. And it ran from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. And ultimately, we found that the interventions that we took were shown to be successful, whether it was holding a bus for a couple of minutes or sending one out early to put some space in between. But I believe the statistics showed that we had bus bunching decreased by around 40% that day compared to other Wednesdays around that time period. One of the big takeaways from that, though, was realizing that in order for us as OCC to continue to make these adjustments, we had to alter their assignments. Again, dispatchers are charged with taking over, like, say, Cabot, that's one garage, or some might have multiple, like Southampton, Arborway, and Quincy. So that's why to start the winter rating in December, we created this shift to be assigned specifically to monitor and adjust key and frequent routes. That shift, our console 1, it's assigned to only answer calls from the Southampton garage, and we picked that one because that garage's fleet runs essentially only key routes. And we did that to ensure that our dispatchers weren't overburdened. On top of that, OCC management, we issued a quick reference guide for dispatchers to take on what have been known key routes, but also our recent bus network redesign routes, those frequent routes, to give them areas where they could pick up or they could make adjustments more easily, recommended adjustment areas. And finally, we are working, well, not I want to say finally. We're working with lean analytics. We're also trying to define metrics to, I guess, determine what the best adjustments are. So we can just see if like a short turn works better than holding a bus, what the impact might be for ridership when these adjustments are made. And now I could say finally. Finally, we are revising our SOP 92, which has to do with essentially a bus dispatcher's responsibility in monitoring and providing proper bus service. It's kind of a bloated document, admittedly, right now. It hasn't been revised in some years. So the idea is to tighten it up and make sure that we are giving direct, succinct direction to bus dispatchers to make sure that they know what their role is and how to make adjustments when need be. So that's pretty much all I got. I thank you all very much and happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Sure, Alan.
Yeah. For your information, I retired from the MBTA 19 years ago. Some 30-something years ago, we had a federal grant to do essentially the same study that you've been doing. I mean, it's one that's ongoing throughout the industry and a difficult problem to solve. What we did was put an inspector, and we used Route 1 too. We put an inspector, I think, at a couple different locations along the route, and varied that location over the length of the experience. And we found headway management, reliability improved. Our conclusion was it was just more the fact having somebody out on the field watching the service, drivers' behavior. You have the benefit now that the dispatchers have a good sense of where the buses are, at least they should have, and they can manage from that location. And it's something that, one of the last things I worked on was trying to get the smart bus technology onto the buses. So I'm glad to see that you have it and can be using it. The other thing, I remember us doing a manual observation of on-time performance on Route 11, coming out of South Boston to downtown, and had some a checker. These days was long before smart bus, so we had people in the field. It had a checker at City Point, at Broadway Station, and then downtown, and just kind of recorded the times the buses passed at those locations, and then kind of summarized it. And we found those bunching, and what it was at the time. I'd like to get your reaction to this. Is a bus would come in, pick up people, and it was crowded at Broadway and beyond. It was kind of the peak point. And then another bus would come in a couple of minutes behind it, quite light. And then there would be a little delay, and the third bus would come and be heavy. And the fourth bus would come in again and be quite light. And that's the cause of bunching. But that first bus in each bunch was a part-time operator. And this was a time when part-time operators were very new. So it was basically someone with less experience. And the more experienced driver took advantage of that and purposely, at least we believe, purposely drove to get a little closer to his follower, so they wouldn't have to do the same work. I wonder if you still seeing some of the same observations.
Not so much that as far as the latter part of your comment. We have a very new, I guess, operators fleet, call it what you want. The manpower is all pretty new. Also, again, the bus tracking is pretty precise at this point. We kind of know where everyone is.
Yeah.
But to your point about people being down in the field, OCC is not the only department within the MBTA to conduct pilots or to try and manage bus headway. In fact, like there've been a couple others at this point. We tried to run headway service during the marathon recently. We've had other people from bus operations run in Arlington. I believe on the Route 77, they had over at Arlington Center, trying to deadhead out of the Heights or at least turn them over at Arlington Center. So we are finding that while you do have some, you can call them game players, we can check them pretty quickly because of the technology that we use now. And on top of that, I do think that it's a collaborative effort in the authority now that we all want to solve this problem. It's pretty encouraging to see that multiple departments are engaging to, collaborate to find one solution.
Yeah, I mean, short tripping it helps unbunch the bunch.
Right.
It also defeats the purpose that you're turning a bus around and you got to take care of people who might want to continue. So no matter how you do it, it's difficult. So
And
I
that's
wish you good luck.
Thank you. And that's why I mentioned, like making the adjustments so the buses aren't bunched versus the impact to riders or customers waiting for the bus. Consider if it's like a rainy day or inclement weather, yeah, that bus has another one behind it. However, we don't want to make someone wait any longer than they have to already. So it's a question too about like, what adjustments to make, but also when to make those adjustments.
Yeah, it's a difficult call.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Leonard and then Andy.
Yeah, thank you. I'm familiar with the 77. So have you considered you said that the pilot involved like holding the bus, the second bus, so that the first bus is at least two time points ahead. Have you considered just like sending a bus from Harvard Square to Porter Square out of service, until it gets to Porter Square, and then because what happens, you can just see it mathematically. You can almost write a formula for it. You load up a bus at Harvard Square. chances are now that bus is going to stop at every stop. And so the other bus behind it, regardless of the motive, be it of the driver, it's going to catch up to it. And so I think the only way, to break that, is to reduce the chances or reduce the dwell time, be it of that first bus. I mean, it seems like if you send that first bus to Porter Square, and this is just an example of what you could do with other buses that you could, at least if not eliminate the bunching, then at least reduce the amount of time, at least of that bus in the front.
Yep, I absolutely agree with you, and that was why a big portion of our project was to attack this from the endpoints. We felt it was easiest to make these adjustments from the endpoints, and literally just to either hold one and move one up, like you said. So in ours, it was going from Harvard to Central, rather than on the 77 going northbound Harvard to Arlington Heights. So the same idea, we would send one out light, have it run ahead if necessary, if two were bunched up, and we had the second one there at Harvard. And we were making that adjustment in Nubian Square too. We were sending one out straight up Washington Street to a left on Mass Ave. The issue there though too is, like, again, depending on the situation, if there's heavy traffic, it may be difficult to send that bus out light, and it's difficult, and talk about the rider experience to have customers waiting at a bus stop and there's heavy traffic and they see an out of service bus go by. So again, we do make those decisions. There's definitely been times where we send a bus out light, like you said, express it out to a certain area to start from there. But yeah, there's definitely some factors that come into play.
Yeah, I understand. So I have more, but I'm going to put my hand down and let other people. And if you have time to come back to me,
Sure.
maybe we can talk some more. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Great. Anyway, my name is Andy. I work at the City of Cambridge. I'm the Transit Program Manager here in the newly created Department of Transportation. Let me just first off start off by saying just how exciting it is to hear that folks at the T are working on this. This is, among other things, right? Like, one of the key things that we think that the T can do to really improve the quality of service that we hear from constituents all the time about, even on frequent routes, right? They experience the things like bus bunching and things like that. So between, I think, our two key initiatives, which I think we were saying, headway management is one of them that we want the T to pick up. It's great to hear that this is happening. The other one being all-door boarding and off-board fare payment, right? Those are the other kind of strategies that we've really been supportive of. So glad to hear this is going on. I'm wondering if, based on your experience, whether this implies maybe considering other types of changes and improvements to the T's processes, right? So from the kind of limited experience that you all have, I think using the example of the Route 1 or some of the other frequent bus routes or the key bus routes, that's great to hear. Obviously, this might not work well on shorter routes like the ones that only serve Cambridge, but like the key and frequent bus routes are things that, like, would it be like installing operator countdown clocks to say, hey, the bus in front of you left 2 minutes ago, don't leave until it hits a certain time, or other types of maybe less labor intensive dispatching methods that I've heard exist in other places? Is this something that does seem to have enough oomph behind it or momentum behind it that seems to be indicating thinking about those kind of things and exploring the idea further, or is it still going to kind of remain in like, well, let's see how we can make this work within the kind of staffing and resources we got?
Well, regarding the staffing, we are always hiring. Right now we have 18 bus dispatchers, but clearly we need more. But we've known that before this pilot was run anyway. The idea is to have at least 26, and it's just a process to get people out of bus operations. All of our dispatchers come from bus ops, and they make their way up as an operator or an inspector before coming to OCC. Regarding the tools that we use every day, we utilize Transit Master. That's an outside application. However, the MBTA has been diligent in creating their own apps to allow us to track buses internally, and we're truly trying to explore what options we have. We're trying to maximize what we have, and going forward to really rethink how we're tracking buses and how we're managing service. So I mean, I think that was one of the things we were talking about. I know that I don't want to speak so much for like bus ops or technology, but I think they're making advances in what kind of tablets might be on the buses. They already right now have something that talks about their schedule adherence. There's a screen there. However, I'm not sure if like we would have changed Transit Master from like schedule adherence to headway mode, what impact that would have on the screens that the bus operators are using. But yeah, I would say at this point, we're looking into every option. And again, the people who work with technology, Dan Zagonic's team have been a huge help to help, to letting us explore what the possibilities are to make this happen.
Leonard?
I can go again. Okay, great. Two quick things. One is when it comes to the letting riders know what's going on. I mean, please don't underestimate the intelligence of riders. We understand situations. And if you were to tell the public, we are expressing the bus, to a certain stop, in order to alleviate bus bunching, we get it, and with the apps that help you determine, when the next bus is coming, I think people would understand it. But sometimes, even if they don't, if you are doing something that benefits more people, then leadership just has to do it. And I know from the old days, that Dave Carney was very much against jumping buses, advancing them, and leaving people waiting. I get that, but I think we need to maybe think about doing that some more. And the other is to find out if you are you doing maybe any simulations about these interventions, and maybe some analysis of the big amount of data that you have to help you predict when you're going to get bunching. I think like certain times a day probably lead themselves to bunching, and there might be even be days where there might be a particular set of riders, that can lead to bunching. And I'll say something that I know is proud. I can trust everyone here, but I know that if I'm on a bus, and a person, in a wheelchair gets on, and that person needs help, that bus is going to be late. And as that bus is late, it starts picking up more and more people, and that's going to lead to bus bunching. And people, their behavior patterns, and you can kind of see it when you look at the data, and they can maybe give you some way to predict when something's going to happen, and then you're ready with the intervention, ahead of time, instead of kind of being purely reactive. So it's mainly to say, are you kind of doing that kind of data mining? That's it. Thank you.
You're welcome. And I mean, again, we started to look at when buses were bunching. I mean, obviously a lot of it happens during rush hour, but as you said, like there are a lot of variables that come into play. Someone who's slow to get their money out to pay. I know the T's obviously now trying to speed up fare collection on buses. All these buses are now low floor, which that's great, but it also eases the entry for someone who utilizes a mobile device. So, I mean, there are ways that I think we are addressing these things, but we're also working with lean analytics to kind of refine how we label an adjustment itself. Right now, when we adjust it, it's just going to say adjusted. And then it's on the dispatcher to state to state exactly what they did. They have to type it all in. So we're trying to make that a little clearer, make it a little easier to draw that data out, because you could have someone say, for instance, if they were going to run from Harvard to Porter out of service, right? I could say they ran from Harvard to Porter out of service. They ran light to Porter. They deadheaded to Porter. So that's three different ways right there to say one thing. So we're trying to, really tighten this up to make sure that this data has meaning. And, obviously, whatever we glean from that data will be very, very helpful going forward in how we do what we are trying to do.
Thank you.
Thanks, Michael. Anyone else with questions, comments? No? Hannah, anything from you or I don't know, I think we lost Brian.
I'm good. And I think if anyone has further questions, they can always reach out to you directly, Michael. Oh, I see Brian popped on, so I don't know if he has anything else to add, but folks should certainly feel free to reach out if there's any questions, concerns, or comments.
Great. Thank you, Michael. Thank you for the update. We really appreciate it.
You're very welcome.
All right, I will move on to spring schedule changes update with Dan. Hi, Dan.
Hello. My name is Dan Zagarnik. I am the Acting Chief of Operations, Planning, Scheduling, and Strategy. I work with Mike Joyce every day, and it was great to hear about all the lean and ops analytics and technology and bus ops projects that are going on with Headway Management. Excited where that goes. So I'm here to talk about spring. I wasn't sure how much detail to provide, so I do have some slides that I can walk you guys through. If this is too much detail, just let me know. So can you guys see these slides? It says bus service 2025.
Yep.
Great. So we have an internally aligned set of objectives of what we want to accomplish in the next, say 18, 24 months. And so we've identified the categories, the internal status of those categories, and what our goal is, and how much headcount, bus operator headcount increase we would need in order to hit those goals. And so one of the things we really wanted to do in the fall of 2024 is focus on improving delivery of current service. And that is drop trips and scheduled efficiency. The next things that we were going to tackle is quality of employee work schedules, which is split days off, undesirable swings, bathroom breaks, things of that nature. And then the next thing that we definitely want to work on is bus network redesign, phase 2. We did a successful phase 1 implementation in the winter of 24. And so we are now moving on to the next phase as bus operator headcount increases are available. And we also have a lot of diversions, and so we do a lot of shuttle work. And so how are we going to do that with internal resources, as well as account for all of the various CBAs that require us to do internal promotions, and people want to move out from becoming a bus operator to a bus dispatcher, things like that. And where are we? And so we have kind of needs, goals, priorities, timelines, things of that nature. And so this is where this is the plan. And so then we also talking about aligning the plan with a timing element. And so where do we expect to be in the spring, in the summer, next fall, next winter? So we know we have an attrition rate, people retire, people quit, people move on, and we also hire. People get their CDLs, they may fail their CDLs, things like that. Leonard, I see you have your hand up.
Yeah, quickly, can you go into presentation mode? Because we're
Better?
excellent.
Bigger?
Thank you. Much better. Appreciate it.
Right. So you could see where we were in January. As you know, for service planning, we have to plan much earlier than the season that we're in. So the service for this spring that we are currently operating was developed in early January. So these slides might feel old, but actually these are the slides and the data that we had available to us to make this spring service. So for spring of 2025, we expect an average of 1,656 operators, which allows for increasing the scheduled 5 day. The 5 days is the term we use for the schedule. And we know that in fall rating, there'll be more operators coming in. That's just the sequence of training school and how long it takes people to matriculate through the training program so that they get their CDL and know all the bus routes. So with that in mind, we wanted to, on the left-hand side are the list of bus garages, and which is the rows. The columns are bucketing the key MBTA priorities, scheduled efficiency, service adjustments, split days off, and sweeper routes. So we thought that we would have an extra 19 bus operators to schedule. And this is how we allocated the 19 bus operators across the garages and across the various priority areas. And I'll get into these in the next slide. So the schedule deficiency happens when our scheduled runtime is lower than the actual time it takes to do a trip. Now, this is one of the reasons we have bus bunching. So it does tie in to the previous conversation, but it also, it's hard to adhere to the schedule if the schedule does not reflect how long it actually takes to go from one end of a trip to the other. And so we look at data and travel time and patterns and stuff like that. And so we're looking at specific routes that we are targeting for this spring rating that we have targeted. So these are the things we've accomplished this spring. And so we've made adjustments to the 66, the 1, the 22, the 23, the 77, 111, the SL4, and the 32 to update the run times so that they are more accurately reflect current run times. So that's scheduled efficiency. Split days off. This is an employee morale thing. People really don't like having like a Tuesday, Thursday off schedule or a Sunday, Wednesday. And we think this is the right thing to do. We are investing in our employees, and B, we have found increased absenteeism. And so if we have schedules that people don't like, people bang in, people call out. So we addressed some of the split days off at Arbor Way and Quincy for the spring rating. And we also did some service adjustments, specifically at for the 57 and the 77. So you can see what we did. We thought that this was a great use of our resources. So for the 57, we removed the short turn to allow for evenly spaced headways, which is another element to headway management, to not only to create schedules that you can adhere to, but actually make the schedules evenly spaced out as well. And I think the 77, we wanted to really invest in that to get it back to where it was. Sweeper routes, this is a temporary thing that we had to implement, or maybe it's a permanent thing, but for now it's temporary. We have changed our east-west end of service procedures. So end of revenue service is a process that we have implemented. We've always had, and so we've made adjustments to it for this spring, and it's going really well. We are not having any issues with it. It does allow for better maintenance windows for our infrastructure maintenance crews to get out there earlier and get more work done. And so we can maintain the system to make sure that the slow zones that we had in the past don't creep up again. And so we made these changes, but that included adding some sweeper routes for the end of the day. And then we made adjustments to these were like net neutral updates. So we always make small tinkers at the various routes. And you can see these here. I'm not going to read every single one of them. Some of the deadhead updates, things like that. But we have, we're tinkering with all of them. And so we're planning more schedule deficits reductions, for the fall, more undesirable swings reductions, and starting phase 2 as headcount increases. And phase 2 is not going to be one big bang. It's going to be, as resources are available, we will be adding those things in. There's resources, there's construction, there's planning exercises. So that's it. So that is what I have. I can stop sharing if I figure out how to do that. And I don't really know how to stop sharing. Maybe I think I did stop sharing. Is that correct?
No,
Okay.
it's still sharing.
I'm still sharing. Pause. Okay. Stop sharing. Hold on now.
All set now.
Okay. Sorry, we're not a Zoom organization. We're a MS Teams, so we do Teams calls. So I'm not familiar with this. So any questions, comments, feedback?
I have a question I've asked before on particularly your new routing, your restructure areas at times. The first phase was up in the East Boston, Melrose, Medford area. What are any conclusions, results, changes in ridership, comments from the public, pluses or minuses? Just curious how it's going.
It's a great question. We are definitely still gathering feedback. And we have metrics and dashboards and analysis. So ridership is up on those routes significantly. Feedback is positive. Comments, we're gathering a lot. And so I mean, from my perspective, it's a huge success.
So is this ridership, this is new ridership on the routes that you've restructured from where it was before?
Yep.
Any idea where those riders are coming from? Are they new riders, people riding more often, or are they just diverted from other routes that are now not as frequent as some of the routes they're running today? You know, what are the causes?
Yeah, and so we look at both trips as well as passenger travel. Like I'm blanking on the term, but we're looking at both. So it's not just cannibalizing other service, but it's a net new service. So yeah, these are the type of things that we are analyzing. I think we'll have a formal review with a presentation as we launch into phase 2 at the board, but also at various other forums. I know we're still in the planning stages and still early days for evaluating phase 1. It has been only a couple months, and most of those months were cold winter months. So
All right, that would be interesting, that result. The other question, you said you implemented Route 57A, short turn on Route 50 out to Watertown. 57A is not new. It's been used over the
yeah,
years and other short terms. And as you know, there's pluses and minuses to these things, because yeah, you can put more capacity in this portion of the route that you need it the most. And rather than sending a bus half full all the way to Watertown, you turn it, what do you, Oak Square, you look like is what you're using. And
Yeah.
that's somewhat good, but it also then puts it on a burden on the customer and yourself to inform the customers that watch out, the 57A isn't going all the way to Watertown or beyond. So, I mean, you have to promote it. And you have more tools now than we had when I was there to advise the customers what's going on. But it's something to be careful, because we went back and forth a number of times over the years. You know, we want more capacity, but we want less confusion, because a lot of people are just getting on the bus and they get to Oak Square and they have to get off and wait for the next one. So there's pluses and minuses in all these strategies.
Yep. And we had the short turn for the winter rating. For the spring rating, we've eliminated the short turn by adding resources and making just more service on the 57 so that the even headway.
Yeah, because we did something like that on the green line number of routes, the blue line, the number of bus routes. You know, it was always a way of trying, depending on the budget and the manpower available and the fleet available. A lot of times we were forced into running short trips just to provide capacity where it was needed the most. But then there was always those who didn't understand what we were doing, and they were getting off and they were upset. So it became a easier service to deliver when everything was going between the same origin and destination. And there's other situations which you're getting into, different branch line operations that might differ, but it's something you need to be careful how you relate to the customer. You know, Leonard had a comment about that earlier. You know, same thing, expressing a bus out of Harvard Square and going, you know, no stop until wherever, Central Square. And you got people standing at the street corner waiting for a bus that's not picking up everybody. They get upset. So it's a difficult problem, and it's been around since day one and will be around for many more days. Thank you.
Andy, Matt, and then Leonard.
Great. Thanks, Dan, for this presentation. Glad to see you all actually sharing a little bit more transparently some of like the thinking that goes behind a lot of these changes. I think in the past, at least for city staff, at least here in Cambridge, we didn't get a chance to see the kind of thought process that goes into a lot of the decisions. We're just being more informed of, decisions being made. And so I really appreciate the fact that you're bringing this transparency there. I guess just in that same vein, one of the things that we've been talking about with other folks, primarily in the bus network redesign phase 2 kind of implementation pieces, there are some things that are, I think on the list of items that you had for like future implementation shown as schedule changes, but what I'm actually seeing now is things that are a little bit more structural, like route changes, the changes to streets and things like that. And we've been kind of going out and telling members of the community that obviously it's your all as at the T. It's your process to manage that information. But I'm starting to see a gap form in kind of the words that are being used to describe what's changing, but the actualities of what's changing. And I'm wondering if you can dive in a little bit more into just kind of these things. Like I'm actually thinking like, I think the 85 CT2 is an example where what I'm starting to see is it's actually a route change. It's not just a frequency change. But I'm hearing that it's actually maybe one of the first items here. So I just want to be clear so I can, give my feedback to the right folks. Like, what is actually the plan? Is it just really to focus primarily on the frequent route additions and things like that? Or is there actually some structural changes that are being contemplated in the next couple ratings?
Yeah, so the bus network redesign team, up until very recently reported to me, but now is within bus operations. So I'll just speak on their behalf a little bit, but I would definitely direct your questions to Justin and Ed Luna, and they will definitely, I think, talk to you about specifics. Phase 2 will have a combination of frequency and span changes only, and things that will require more of a capital construction element to them, as well as routing changes. And those bigger changes take longer to do, and therefore, and also require like a communication and outreach and coordination and all sorts of things. And so the team had been focused last summer and last fall on phase 1. And so we only recently started working on phase 2 in earnest. So I think those plans are coming together and communicated. And I think the 85 CT2 is labeled as a route change, and it is happening, but sooner than later. But so it is both. So it's not, BNR was a thing that got, it was a whole process. It got voted on. There's lots of packages, and some of them are route changes. And so, but so yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, no, I just, kind of, I think it was the last slide that you had up, but it looked like, the recollection that I had of is some of these changes are actual route changes, but the slides is basically say it's just schedule changes or frequency changes. So there's a little bit of a gap there, and I can follow up for sure with Ed and Asim, who I've been talking to, and then of course Justin as well. But I think the word that's getting out there is kind of more oriented toward like it'll be schedule changes, like maybe upgrading some of the key bus routes to frequent bus routes. And so some of these details which are pretty important with route changes are maybe being lost in the other kind of message that's coming out. So just want to flag that really more than
I'll pass that back. And we're definitely starting with the frequency and span changes for the fall and winter, just because that's how the timeline looks at. Okay. Matt?
There we go. Hey Dan, thanks for the presentation, and all sorry for the delay. I was having to work on some budget stuff, so apologies for that. Dan, you might have mentioned this, but there was some interesting information here, and I think there's a lot of progress being made on scheduling and on operations and improving those. Is there a way, in sort of reflecting what Alan and Andy said, to sort of broadcast this a little bit more to the public to sort of get this information out there? Because I feel like it's a part of the narrative and the story that sometimes gets lost in the day-to-day around, the overall MBTA program, right? So just want to see if there was any thoughts on engagement or sort of getting this information to a broader audience.
I'm always happy to talk about bus anywhere and everywhere. So if you want to invite me to a forum or the T, I'm I don't know. And there's an innovation expo that is happening that MBTA is running in a month. That's a place where we're going to be showcasing some bus improvements. So we're always interested in positive news stories, also conversations. We've been working hard on this, and we have a lot of success to share. Our drop trip is significantly improved. We actually have what was 0.5% for the first time in forever on many weeks this spring rating, for example.
Awesome. Well, congratulations on that, and we can put some thought to it, and I'll reach out if we have any good ideas. But yeah, I would just encourage if you're able to spread the word.
Okay.
Really
Thank
good
you.
stuff.
With that, Dan, maybe I'll invite you to a select board meeting in Arlington so you can talk about the increased service in the 77. There'll be fireworks going off in town about that one. But anyways, I'm really happy to hear that you're focused on operator morale and trying to reduce the split days off. I'm really happy that the T is continuing its investment, or going to continue bringing on more personnel, or at least not cutting with the extreme pressures that it's facing, and given all the effort that's been put into building up the staff. Maintaining them is even more important, and morale is a big thing. And so along those lines, are you all still doing split shifts? Because as I recall, a long time ago, or maybe not that long ago, used to be that the new drivers would have to do these split shifts. And I know that was really hard on the drivers, and you'd lose a lot of drivers, I think, because of that.
Yeah. So as a couple things. Yes, we still have split shifts. However, the service patterns have changed post-COVID, and so we are not experiencing such peaky ridership in the AM and PM peaks. It's actually a longer, flatter peak, and it's not as high. So as a result, the worst of the split shift schedules have been going away, and so the schedules have overall been improving. And we have other service ideas in place. So for example, for the first time ever, we've created a new job classification called halftime operators, which is a true morning shift only. So we're piloting that. And so this is the first time. And so the idea is if you get enough of those, they can take the morning peak, and that would eliminate most of the split shifts, the undesirable shifts, which would improve. That is an employee morale initiative. So that's an idea, because the service is what the service is, and so we have to staff it in the morning and the PM. So it's a tough situation, but we're thinking creatively about how do we provide the service to the customers at the same time do right by our employees.
Yeah, thank you.
Al?
Yeah, just you hit a chord with me when you say forever. Unless you know the history forever, say recent years. We used to run at times part-timers working only the morning, rush hour, only the evening, and other things that were mentioned. So just say in recent memory, please, because
Okay.
I can show you some papers from Edward Dana, the Boston Elevated, dealing with the same subjects that we all dealt with here and throughout the industry. So just a suggestion for me. Thanks.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Anyone else with questions, comments? Thanks, Dan, for that. That was really helpful. We will move on to old or new business. An exciting combination. Anything folks wish to bring up? No? Okay. All right, speak now. No, nothing?
Great meeting.
All right.
Great agenda.
And then our next meeting date is June 10th at 11 a.m. Hannah, anything from you?
No, I think that is pretty much it. Brian and Mayor Keefe presented the CIP report to the board, the MBTA Board of Directors today. So that's why Brian was over hanging out with Frank. And then we will also be going through the operating budget process that's starting this week with that committee. And stay tuned for the full advisory board, which is slated to be, I believe, as you mentioned, June 10th as of now. But otherwise, you can always reach out over email if things come up. We're also going to start planning town and city visits again now that it's slightly nicer weather. Not right now, it's not, but hopefully it'll be that warm weather. So if we haven't been to your community and you want us to come down and meet, feel free to reach out.
Thank you. Oh, Frank?
So June 10th at 10 is the full board to vote on the operating budget. And then at 11 o'clock, this committee meets right after that.
As of now, yes.
Okay.
But Brian just mentioned that we may cancel the rapid transit or try to reschedule. That way it's not back to back, unless you feel that you would like to have the June meeting at that time. And that's where I will turn to Mayor Jen, Matt, and you, Frank, logistically.
Okay. I think if the only thing on the agenda for the full board is the vote on the operating budget, then we could do it at 11 without any problem.
Okay. If that works for everyone here, then I'm happy to go ahead. And it should already be actually on our calendar and on our schedule if it's not. And then we'll work on agenda topics as well. And as always, reach out to us anytime. Thank you, Mayor Jen, also for helping logistically with the internet and leading. And Matt, you didn't miss much, so don't worry. And we'll be sure to also send out the recording and the minutes in advance. Do you have another thing, Frank?
I was going to make the motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
We have a second. We have a motion to adjourn, second made by Frank, seconded by John. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you all. We will see you in June. And I echo Hannah. Hopefully it feels more like summer by then.
Hey, it's
Happy
better than
Memorial
winter,
Day.
you know, I mean, it's